Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We were from the first group of Social Psychology and Language Use course. We'll deliver our presentation about language and representation. Please listen carefully. Making meanings and representing things works. The meaning of representing based on shorter Oxford English Dictionary. First, to represent something is to describe or depict, to call it up in the mind by description or portrayal or imagination, to place a likeness of it before us in our mind in the sense, as for example, in the sentence, this picture represents the murder of Abel by Cain. Second, to represent also means to symbolize, stand for, to be a specimen of, or to substitute for, as in the sentence. In Christianity, the cross represents the suffering and crucifixion of Christ. If you put down a glass you are holding and walk out of the room, you can still think about the glass, even though it is no longer physically there. Actually, you can think with a glass. You can't speak with the actual glass either. You can only speak with the word for glass, which is the linguistic science which used in English to refer to the object out of which you drink water. This is where representation comes in. Representation is the production of the meaning of the concept in our minds through language. System of representation, it is consists not of individual concepts, but of different ways of organizing, clustering, arranging, and classifying concepts, and of establishing complex relations between people. This mixing and matching of relation between concepts to form complex ideas and thought is possible because the concepts are arranged into different classifying systems. The point here is, it is not just a random collection of concepts, but concepts organized, arranged, and classified into complex relations with one another. But the conceptual map which a person carries is totally different from other people.
Language and representation. People who belong to the same culture must share a similar conceptual map, so they also share the same way of interpreting the sign of a language. For only in this way can meanings be effectively exchanged between people. This may seem relatively simple in the case of visual sign. Even so, a draw or painted or digital version of a ship is not exactly like a real ship, even in the case of visual language, where the relationship between the concept and the sign seems fairly straightforward. The matter is far from simple. It is even more difficult with written or spoken language, where words don't look or sound anything like the things to which they refer. In part, this is because they are different kind of signs. Visual signs are what are called iconic signs. They appear in they form a certain resemblance to the object, person, or even to which they refer. A photograph of a tree reproduces some of the actual condition of visual perception in the visual sign. Written or spoken text, on the other hand, are what is called indexical. Jadi, di sini dijelaskan bahwa orang yang memiliki latar belakang yang sama dalam berpikir atau mengartikan sesuatu itu harus bertukar pikiran kepada orang lain, sehingga mereka juga dapat berbagi cara dalam menafsirkan bahasa. Seperti contoh, di sini domba. Domba yang dicat atau domba versi digital faktanya tidak sama persis dengan domba dalam kehidupan nyata. Bahasa visual jauh lebih sulit daripada bahasa tertulis ataupun lisan, karena bahasa visual itu tidak terlihat dan tidak terdengar. Lalu, tanda-tanda visual adalah apa yang disebut tanda-tanda ikonik. Mereka membuat sesuatu dengan versi mereka yang mirip dengan suatu objek, orang, atau peristiwa yang ingin mereka rujuk. The conclusion is representation is the production of meaning through language. Language can use signs to symbolize, stand for objects or people, and even in the real world. But they can also reference imaginary things and fantasy worlds or abstract ideas which are not in any obvious sense part of real material world. There is no simple relationship of reflection, imitation, or one-to-one correspondence between language and the real world. The world isn't accurately or otherwise referenced in the mirror of language. Language doesn't work like a mirror. Meaning is produced within language and through various representation systems which, for convenience, we call language. Meaning is produced by the practice, the work, or representation. It is constructed through satisfying practice. Kesimpulannya, representasi adalah produksi makna melalui bahasa. Bahasa dapat menggunakan tanda-tanda untuk melambangkan, mendukung objek, atau orang-orang dan peristiwa di dunia nyata. Tetapi, mereka juga dapat merujuk hal-hal imajiner dan dunia fantasi atau ide-ide abstrak yang tidak dalam arti yang jelas dari dunia nyata. Tidak ada hubungan sederhana dari refleksi, imitasi, atau korespondensi satu sama lain antara bahasa dan dunia nyata. Dunia tidak secara akurat atau tidak tercermin dalam cermin bahasa. Bahasa tidak berfungsi sebagai cermin. Makna diproduksi dalam bahasa, dalam dan melalui berbagai sistem representasional yang sering kita sebut bahasa. Makna diproduksi oleh praktik atau pekerjaan representasi. Hal tersebut dibangun melalui praktik yang signifikan.
Sharing the quotes. Then how do people who belong to the same culture, who share the same conceptual map, and who speak or write the same language know that the arbitrary combination of letters and sounds that makes up the word tree will represent the concept of a large plant that grows in nature. The meaning is not the object or person or thing, nor is it in the word. It is people who fix the meaning so firmly that after a while it comes to seem natural and inevitable. The meaning is constructed by the system of representation. It is constructed and fixed by the code, which sets up the correlation between conceptual system and language system. One way of thinking about culture in the terms shared conceptual maps, shared language system, and the codes which govern the relationship of translation between them. Codes fix the relationships between concepts and signs. They stabilize meaning within different language and culture. They tell which language to use to convey which idea. Code tell which concepts are being referred to when people hear which idea, which signs. By arbitrarily fixing the relationship between conceptual system and linguistic system, code make it possible to speak and hear intelligible. and establish the translatability between concept and language which enable meaning to pass from speaker audience and effectively communicate within a culture. This is what children learn and how they become not simply biological individuals but cultural subjects. They learn the system and convention of representation, the code of their language and culture, not because such knowledge is imprinted in their genes, but because they learn its convention. They unconsciously internalize the codes which allow them to express certain concepts and ideas through their system of representation and to interpret ideas which are communicated to them using the same system. Kode ini memungkinkan makna untuk diteruskan ke pembicara atau audien atau pendengar dengan cara dikomunikasikan secara efektif. Karena mempelajari aturan tersebut, secara tidak sadar mereka menginternalisasi kode-kode yang memungkinkan mereka untuk mengekspresikan konsep dan ide-ide melalui representasi mereka atau menafsirkan, mengartikan ide-ide yang dikomunikasikan kepada mereka menggunakan sistem yang sama.
Theory of representation. Now there are three approaches. One, inner reflective approach, meaning is thought located in the object, person, idea, or even in the real world, and language function like a mirror. To reflect the true meaning as it already exists in the world. Theory which says that language works by simply reflecting or imitating the truth that is already there are fixed in the world. Of course, there is a certain obvious through the imitation theories of representation and language. Visual sense bear some relationship to the shape and texture of the object which they represent. The second approach to meaning in representation argues the opposite case. It holds that is the speaker, the author, who imposes his or her unique meaning on the word through language. Words mean what the author intends they should mean. However, as a general theory of representation through language, the intentional approach is also flawed. The third approach recognizes in public social character of language. It acknowledges that neither thing in themselves nor the individual user of language can fix meaning in language. According to this approach, people seldom confuse the material world where things and people exist. However, is it not the material world which conveys meaning? It is the language system. It is society who use the conceptual system of their culture and the linguistic and other representational system to construct meaning, to make the word meaningful, and to communicate about that word meaningful to others. Jadi dalam materi ini terdapat 3 pendekatan. Yang pertama, dalam pendekatan reflektif, makna dianggap terletak pada objek, orang, ide, atau peristiwa di dunia nyata, dan bahasa berfungsi sebagai cermin untuk mencerminkan makna yang sebenarnya seperti yang sudah ada di dunia. Pada abad keempat sebelum Masehi, orang Yunani menggunakan gagasan mimesis untuk menjelaskan bagaimana bahasa, bahkan menggambar dan menulis. teori yang mengatakan bahwa bahasa bekerja dengan merefleksikan atau meniru kebenaran yang sudah ada dan tetap di dunia kadang-kadang disebut mimetik. Tentu saja ada kebenaran nyata tertentu dalam meniru teori representasi dan bahasa. Tanda-tanda visual memang memiliki hubungan dengan bentuk dan tekstur objek yang diwakilinya. Selanjutnya, pada pendekatan kedua terhadap makna dalam representasi, mengemukakan kasus yang berlawanan. Ini berpendapat bahwa pembicara, penulis yang memaksakan makna uniknya pada dunia melalui bahasa. Kata-kata berarti apa yang penulis maksudkan. Namun, sebagai teori umum representasi, melalui bahasa, pendekatan yang disengaja juga memiliki kelemahan. Selanjutnya, pendekatan yang ketiga, mengakui karakter bahasa sosial publik ini. Ini mengakui bahwa baik hal-hal dalam diri mereka sendiri maupun pengguna bahasa individu tidak dapat memperbaiki makna dalam bahasa. Menurut pendekatan ini, orang tidak boleh bingung dengan dunia material, tempat benda, dan orang berada. Namun bukan dunia material yang menyampaikan makna, melainkan sistem bahasanya. Masyarakatlah yang menggunakan sistem konseptual budaya mereka dan linguistik serta sistem representasi lainnya untuk membangun makna, membuat dunia bermakna, dan mengkomunikasikan tentang dunia itu secara bermakna kepada orang lain.
Okay, I think that's all from us. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.